It's the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Pires coming to you from Baltimore. The UK Supreme Court handed down its decision in the Brexit case, in which it ruled that Parliament must be consulted before the government can trigger a British exit from the European Union. Let's listen to what the President of the Supreme Court, Lord Neuberger, had to say on the matter.
The issue in these proceedings have nothing to do with whether the UK should exit from the EU or the terms or timetable for that exit. The main issue is whether the government can trigger Article 50 without the prior authority of an Act of Parliament. Therefore, when the UK withdraws from the EU treaties, a source of UK law will be cut off. Further, certain rights enjoyed by UK citizens will be changed. Therefore, the government cannot trigger Article 50 without Parliament authorising that course.
So the court ruled that in order to trigger Article 50 of the Treaty on the European Union, Parliament must first pass a law granting the government the power to do so. On to talk about this decision from London is economist John Weeks. He is a professor emeritus of economics at the University of London and is the author of Economics of the 1%, How Mainstream Economics Serves a Rich, Obscure Reality and Distorts Policies. Thanks for joining us, John.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, John, what does this decision in the court really mean for the Brexit?
Well, I think that most people anticipated this. Formally, the decision is that when the government negotiates the terms by which Britain will leave the European Union, it must put those terms before Parliament, a vote of Parliament. Previously, the government of Theresa May, the Conservative government, had said that it was not obligated to have its agreement approved by Parliament, and it was not obligated to have Parliament approve its decision to begin the negotiating process. I don't want to go too much into the rather arcane rules of the European Union, but there's something called Article 50, which states the country's intention or government's intention to leave the European Union, and once you say formally we're going to leave, then you're supposed to tidy up all the details and be out within 2 years. In fact, in practice, that's not true, but most people think it is true, and so Theresa May has maintained two things. I can decide to invoke Article 50 whenever I want to. I don't need Parliament to approve that, and I don't need Parliament to approve the deal that I strike. And the Supreme Court says, no, you do need Parliament to do it. But Leader of the Opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, has said this ruling establishes you might say, the sovereignty of Parliament over these processes, and it gives the people's representatives a chance to hold the government to account. While formally Jeremy Corbyn is correct, I think what's going on is a much more banal and baser process than that. The reason that Theresa May did not want these issues to go before Parliament is she's frightened of her own party. Some people may have seen me speak about Brexit immediately after the vote last June, and I pointed out, as many people have, that the only reason a vote was held is that the Prime Minister then, the Tory Prime Minister, David Cameron, thought that he would win the referendum easily, and that by holding the referendum, he would establish his power and be able to neutralize those people in his party who were for leaving the European Union. So he called this monumentally important vote, this referendum, he established it, you might say, for petty party reasons. And then it is a case, as Gilbert and Sullivan say in the Mercato, that would let the punishment fit the crime, but unfortunately, because he had to resign after he lost the referendum, but unfortunately, all the rest of us that would like to stay in the European Union are also being punished.
This sovereignty of the UK, the Parliament, its courts, and so on, it was one of the reasons that was used, or arguments that was rendered in terms of exiting from the European Union. It's interesting now that's being used in order to whether it's going to be implemented or not. Give us a sense of what this decision will trigger in terms of parliamentary debate and discussion before the law is passed.
I think that this discussion will strengthen those conservative members of parliament who want to leave the European Union. Now, it may also strengthen the groups in the Labour Party that want to remain in the European Union. So we have a rather complicated situation. The Labour spokesperson for what position the Labour Party takes on Brexit or the European Union is a man named Keir Starmer, who happens to be my MP. And he is primarily taken a very, you might say, he is a lawyer, a very legal approach to this, and pointed out how complicated it will be to leave. He supports staying in the European Union. He is hampered by the fact that the Labour leadership has not been clear on the position that the leadership, is taking on the European Union negotiations. So this is a long-winded story to make a very simple point. What this court case means for the Tories, for the Conservatives, is quite clear. It strengthens the right wing of the Tory party. It strengthens that portion that wants to leave the European Union. The impact it has in the Labour Party is not clear, because it is not clear what the Labour Party's position is on leaving the European Union. At some points, Jeremy Corbyn has suggested that we ought to wash our hands and get out as quickly as possible. But he's come under a lot of pressure to oppose the government in the government's attempt to negotiate a quick and rather, what appears to be a rather unfavorable leaving of the European Union.
All right, so John, last week, I guess not anticipating this decision, Theresa May, who, by the way, is on her way to visit the newly minted President Trump here in the United States, unraveled a plan, that is the Brexit plan. What did you make of her speech?
I think that the most important aspect of her speech was that she said that it was her intention to negotiate an arrangement in which Britain leaves the common market of the European Union. That is, many people have been, and many businesses have been pressing for her to end British membership in the European Union, but remain a member of the common market. There are other countries, not as big as Britain, but there are other countries that have that arrangement. In effect, that's what Norway has. So, what the business community was pushing for was to continue with all the trading arrangements with the European Union, but pull out as a member. Now, the problem with that for Theresa May, and let me say, I don't think she is a very deep politician, and I don't think she's a very insightful one. And unlike Trump, I don't think she's terribly clever either. So I think pretty much that confusion is what it appears to be. It's confusion. But one thing is clear to her, that her party will split in two if she does not end free migration from Europe into Britain. Her interpretation, and she may be right, of why people voted to leave the European Union, her interpretation is that they voted to leave because they wanted to reduce immigration from the European Union. Therefore, she must leave the single market because one of the many conditions, the most important condition perhaps, of being in the single European market is to accept freedom of movement. You can't have membership in the single market and get rid of freedom of movement. So that is the difficulty she's in. So when she made her speech, there were a lot of vague things about it, but what was clear was we're leaving the single market. That's why, in a way, Trump threw her a lifeline, and I'm sure he did it very consciously. While he is a venal person, he is not a stupid person. He realized that he could gain a strong supporter by offering a trade deal to Britain. There was Theresa May out on a limb that she was sawing off, saying she was leaving the common market of the European Union. And Trump says, well, I'm happy to cut a deal with Theresa May, and we'll do it within a year. Whether he'll deliver on that is another question. I also think it serves a second interest of his, namely in his narrow nationalism. The weaker other trading competitors are, the better. And it would be a European Union, United European Union, is a stronger negotiating opponent than a European Union that began to break up. So if Trump could pick off the countries of the European Union one at a time, France, Germany, even the big ones, he would have a stronger negotiating position. And I'm sure that's what he had in mind when he held out this deal to Theresa May.
All right, let's see what happens on this side of the pond. I think it's tomorrow that she's visiting Washington. I thank you so much for joining us today, John.
Well, thank you.
All right, and thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.